Hello, I'm Winston Smith, and my wife is Kathy Smith, and we are members at St. Aidan's. Our children are our daughter Andrea and our identical sons Ian and Colin, and our children are all married, and we have 12 grandchildren. I won't bother giving you the names or else the timing will run out. When our sons came from the hospital, many pictures were taken and there was great celebration. The boys were placed in Andrea's arms for pictures, after which Andrea very clearly said, "They are nice, Mummy, but when are they going back?" I was one of 5 children. I never knew the oldest, Donald. He died a couple of years before my birth. My other siblings are Ronald, Beverly, and Dennis. Dennis and his wife Margot are members of St. Aidan's, as is their daughter Veronica and her husband Jared. Their son Logan lives in Toronto. My family lived in St. Vital for the first 10 years of my life. We attended St. Mary Magdalene Church, and the Reverend Stanley Atkins from England was our rector. He later became the Bishop of Michigan. Mother taught Sunday school, both at St. Mary Magdalene and later here at St. Aidan's. She and my brother Ronald and I attended church. My father did not for the first 6 or 7 years. And then, to my joy, he started attending regularly right up to his death in 1970. In 1953, our family moved to River Heights and became members of St. Aidan's. Mother immediately enrolled Ronald and I in the church's boys section of the choir, and I've been a member of the choir ever since. In 1955, I became a member of the 67th Winnipeg Scout Troop, which is sponsored by St. Aidan's, and finishing my training with receipt of my Queen Scout Award. I moved right into leadership of the troop and continued until the 1990s. Including a period of time in the 1960s when I was attending university. The troop averaged between 25 and 45 scouts each year of our leadership. And I say our because in about 1971, Alan Wicker joined our leadership, and he's a member of this church, as did a few years later, Herb Shawn. There were other leaders that made up the team, and together we invested and trained several hundreds of boys to become accredited woodsmen and responsible citizens. To become a Scout member required a promise that throughout my life I have tried to keep. I promised on my honor to do my best to love and serve God, my Queen, my country, and my fellow man, and to live by the Scout law. Later, as a leader at each investiture, I asked the new Scout what he considered on my honor meant to him. There were many different answers. Generally, however, I can say the new Scout recognized he had made a commitment that he could be relied upon to keep. Scouting taught me that loving and serving God came first and was my commitment. Confirmation taught me I was committed to the promises my parents made at my baptism. And my parents, particularly my mother, taught me to welcome all opportunities and accept challenges that went with them whenever they came along, and trust in the Lord for support. From age 12 to 18, I was fortunate enough to work on my aunt and uncle's farm. It was hard work and long hours, and I enjoyed every minute of it. However, I was much more interested in driving the farm vehicles and machinery than I was mowing the lawn or weeding the garden. My uncle carefully prepared me to drive the machinery, pointing out all the proper operational procedures to keep me safe. However, when I was about 15 years old, I was almost killed because I was careless. I was operating a Caterpillar tractor, a CAT, pulling a disker, and I was not concentrating on what I was doing. As I started to turn the CAT, I did not bother to check how the disker was doing following behind me. I immediately was overcome by an irresistible feeling of impending danger. As taught, I immediately threw the cat out of gear and for the first time in the turn, looked back and saw the implement suspended above my head. It would be about at the 11:30 position. If I proceeded 3 more feet, I would certainly have been killed. I was shaken, but managed to gingerly reverse the cat and the disker returned to the ground. The cat track had caught the drawbar and raised the entire implement into the air. There was no one else but the Lord who saved my life, and I thank him regularly. Unbeknownst to me at the time, my aunt and grandfather were watching the event unfold from the farmhouse, powerless to do anything about it except, perhaps, pray. Kathy and I met in 1965 and were married in 1968. Kathy was a nurse and I was in my first year of practicing law. She knew I was committed to volunteer service in the community, scouts and sports, and at St. Aidan's, the Servers Guild, vestry, and choir. For the most part, Kathy accepted my commitments, and since she was a trained and accomplished soloist, she joined St. Aidan's choir, and we both have served in it since then. My legal practice included litigation, and litigation is extremely time-consuming and emotionally demanding. Over the years, I had a variety of cases, including the Brooklyn Speedway fatalities, the Eaton Emerald caper, my one and only jury trial, the Keystone Air crash when the pilot and 6 passengers crashed on Logan Avenue because the plane ran out of gas in about 2010. Also during the 12 years I was regional counsel for CP, I was involved in the Winnipeg yard explosion and a member of the legal team applying with CN for the removal of cabooses. Those hearings went on for months and were held right across Canada. Additionally, I was counsel in the Regina Rail relocation hearings that lasted for 7 months during 1986 and 1987. In all the railway matters, there were many issues, including preliminary court motions, team building, gathering together experts, reporting meetings with the CP Rail Board of Directors in Montreal, and so on. All that took many more months before the actual start of those hearings. I was traveling all over the country on these matters, as well as running a law department of 6 or sometimes 7 lawyers and a claims department of 10 agents plus support staff in 2 offices, Winnipeg and Regina. All of these cases kept me from my family for a very substantial period of time. While my children were growing up, I was out of the house a lot of the time. In fact, I was absent from Winnipeg and my family so much, I was being called the mythical by the volunteer organizations I was in, because I seemed to be always away. And someone else on the executive or an assistant coach of the baseball teams I was coaching had to take over. During the middle of our children's teenage years, we discussed possible careers they would may be considering, and I specifically asked them whether they would consider becoming lawyers. Their reply was, "Why would we want to become lawyers, Dad? You are never home." I noted their comment with some sadness, and it confirmed how much I relied on Kathy to keep the family running when I was absent. In the Regina Rail relocation case, we were in the midst of preparing final argument when the hotel management advised me they required all our 19 expert rooms because Francois Mitterrand, the President of France, and his entourage were coming to stay overnight in the hotel. The purpose of coming to Regina was so he could visit a young girl who had invited him to experience a Canadian farm operation. The work on the argument, due to this change of logistics with people being moved all around the city of Regina, became much more difficult. And what's more, I was advised our economic experts were not united on several issues in their portion of the argument. I was frustrated with the entire situation. I marched into what we called the war room, ready to tell the experts to follow the plan we laid out months ago, only to see Kathy standing in the middle of the room, smiling radiantly. It was our 19th wedding anniversary that day, and the team had flown her in to celebrate. Well, while the rest of the team continued on with finalizing the argument, Kathy and I went to dinner. The next morning, Kathy sat in on a part of the arguments and then flew home, leaving a note about how much she appreciated the opportunity to observe me in my work environment. Our marriage partnership has also embraced other challenges God has put in our life path. In 1996, Kathy and I, in partnership with my two other brothers and their wives, bought Hull's Family Bookstore. Kathy and Margot were the managing directors, and we took on this project because we felt God's calling. As we told our staff the first day they cross-examined us as to our faith, we felt called for this mission. We sold the business in 2015. It was a wonderful business. In 2005, Pastor Brett Kane and my cousin Garth Manis asked me to chair the local committee responsible for the 2006 Franklin Graham Central Canada Festival. Scheduled for October 20 to 22nd, 2006, the services would all be held at the Bell MTS Center. What a challenge, and what an experience, working with clergy from just about every denomination in Winnipeg. Alan Wicker served as the accountant for the Festival Corporation. There was 18 months of events and preparations before the October services. Many persons made their commitment after those services or at the end of them to follow Jesus. And for one full year following the festival, the team assigned those new and renewed Christians to the churches according to their professed denomination. And then the team followed up on those assignments to confirm contact. Contact had been made with the assigned church. It was a wonderful experience, and particularly to observe God in action in that place. The last service was an overflowing service that carried on at Calvary Temple. So 15,000 plus people plus more outside. In the 1980s, I had the opportunity to serve on the search committee, resulting in Murray Henderson becoming our rector, and was honored to be asked in 1989 to serve as his rector's warden. A few years later, Kathy served as people's warden. Throughout all my career, when I faced an issue I was concerned about, whether it was cross-examining an expert witness, preparing argument, facing a tough day, or just feeling swamped, I prayed. It didn't matter what time of day or night. In the 1987, during the Regina Rail case, Kathy knew I was facing a major cross-examination challenge that would substantially impact the amount of money the railway would receive if forced by the regulator to move its rails out of Regina. I was extremely concerned about the task and voiced that concern when I was in Winnipeg over the weekend. Knowing my concern, Kathy gave me a book entitled Safe in the Father's Arms by Stephen Fry. And that book gave me great comfort. No, God did not give me any more smarts to attack those experts, but He gave me the tools to do so, i.e. the experts and their skills to craft a proper cross-examination to successfully, and it was successful, accomplish the task. Since then, I have kept that book handy. It travels with me. I cannot overstate how lucky I am that God chose Kathy to be my life partner. She has been and is a faithful partner, devoted to and committed to ensuring the family business, as I call it, runs smoothly and successfully. I love her very much. I close with the wonderful poem, Footprints in the Sand, because it certainly applies to our life together. One night I dreamed a dream as I was walking along the beach with my Lord. Across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one to my Lord. And the last scene of my life flashed before me. After the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. I noticed that at many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and saddest time, there was only one set of footprints. This really troubled me. So I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and most troublesome times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why, when I needed you the most, you would leave me. He whispered, my precious child, I love you and will never leave you. Never, ever during your trials and testings. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. Happy Father's Day and blessings to all of you.